So I want to welcome in guest Kyle Sielaff to the show. Kyle, there's so many things I want to get into with the program, but basically just your overall take. You were on the call for the ACC Network over the weekend on Saturday's game with Rosario pitching. Definitely want to get into that, but just overall your thoughts and also how's it going?
Yeah, it's going good, Chris, and it's good to see you, man. It's I always like talking Canes baseball. My overall thoughts: take away the wins and the losses, right? Like Florida, exceptional to start your season. Take two of three. Then you lose the series last weekend, the first one at home against Virginia Tech. My biggest takeaway: they have an opportunity, seriously, in my mind, to be one of the best college baseball teams in the country. But they've also got a realistic chance here. If they don't clean it up on the bases and in the field, they're going to have a hard time getting out of regionals. And I mean that because watching that team, they can pitch. And some of those freshmen are electric on the mound. I'm not worried about the hitting. I think it's going to come around. There's some guys that have got to step it up a little bit, but I think over the course of a 50-game sample size, they will. But collectively, my biggest concern, and you've seen it almost every game, has been the base running and the defense. And you can't win games in college baseball. I agree with Gino DeMari. I think this is the best the ACC has been in a really long time. Virginia Tech is one heck of a baseball program, by the way. Like, they did everything just well. Maybe a little above average, but they were just really, really good. Miami's got to field the baseball, and you got to be able to throw it. And they cannot make as many mistakes on the bases. It's going to kill them. And I think Gino's aware of it. The players are aware of it, right? And I would say this too, because it does sound like, you're being hard on them. But a lot of the base running to me has been aggressive, but some of them you can't run yourself out of an inning, man, when you've got 2 runs in the first inning and you've got an opportunity to maybe pound them for 3 or 4 and run up a pitch count. Just can't do it. So my takeaway: that's a really good baseball team. I think they're going to come around. There's just a couple of areas that are glaring that they've got to take care of. If they do, I think they have a chance to go to Omaha. I really do.
And I think that too. And I think basically with what you're saying is, the talent is there, the abilities there, hitting and pitching. And I think that's the overall takeaway. Even 6 games in, 2-1 against Florida, 1-2 against Virginia Tech. I definitely agree with you. And I think what's interesting is certainly it's early in the year. That's a very baseball thing to say, just, oh, it's only 6 games. But, and I've heard Gino talk about multiple times, like, look, if they don't get things figured out, you can really dig yourself in a
Mm-hmm.
hole in a hurry. And I think that's maybe the concern moving forward. And I want to get to a lot of the lineup stuff. And I know you said you're not concerned with it, but let's start with this pitching, Kyle.
Yeah.
Daniel Fetterman opening, that first game against Virginia Tech, gives up a couple home runs. His ERA is over 7, 2 starts. But one thing that stands out to me, even though certainly 7 ERA is not good, but it's 14 strikeouts, 1 walk. He feels like he's leaving his pitches up a little bit. He's a strike thrower, so he just needs to buckle down a little bit. And we did see it at the end of that second out against Virginia Tech, where he retired as the last 11. Your thoughts on Fetterman, and then let's get right into Rosario as well, because he's certainly an electric freshman that you got to see, really analyze. And I want to get your take on Rosario, but first start with Fetterman.
Yeah. So the Friday night guy in college baseball, you see a lot of programs like, dude, it's your best guy. We have an expectation he's going to be sitting 94, 95, 96, go give us 7 shutout innings. We're going to win this thing 4-1, and we've got an upper hand on the weekend. I love the veteran experience on the front end on a Friday. And I have no issues with the control with Fetterman. It's been really good, right? Like the strikeout to walk ratio. I think he can really manage a game. I think JD has called good games. I think he's run into a little tough luck, but the home run ball has been prevalent. You're right. He doesn't throw hard enough to get away with mistakes upstairs, and it's cost him a couple of times now. I don't know how long Gino and JD will sit on that before they would consider potentially making a Friday night change. I like Fetterman, the Friday night guy. I really do. But at some point, hey, if he makes 2 more starts and he's still got an ERA of 650, you will have to take a step back and evaluate where you're at. Because, look, like you mentioned, it's a 50-game season. Like, you only have so much time to figure things out, and it is still early, but all of a sudden you're going to play 20, 25 games in a hurry, and you don't want to be in that hole. where you're looking at the schedule going, okay, we have to take 2 or 3 against these guys. We better sweep these guys. We can't lose a series to these guys, because if we do, oh boy, now all of a sudden we've got an issue. So Fetterman, I would give it a couple more starts. I would let the kid try to settle in a little bit, because I love the veteran experience on the front end. I really do, but we'll have to see.
And then, and I'm with you, Kyle. I think with baseball, there's that balance, right? Of being patient, not overreacting to instant results, small sample sizes. And I think that's exactly what's going on the lineup side of things, just trying to deal with patience. But I do, like you said, I think it lays out nicely. And Fetterman, for him to be effective, he doesn't have to have one of these sub-2 ERA type seasons or anything crazy. He just needs to be solid and really control it. And I think it really helps. And also, too, look, I think Rosario is a guy that can kind of handle whatever role he's in. But also, there is something to be said of not being a Friday night guy, right? Like, just be that Saturday night guy. And I asked Alejandro before the season even started, just because that Saturday night guy, okay, it's not the Friday night, but it's certain pivotal either way, right? You lose that first game, you got to bounce back. If you win Friday, you want to win the series Saturday. So I feel like that Saturday night starter still has a key role. And I think I'm with you in that. Give patience to Fetterman for now. And obviously, if things change, they've got guys that they can go to. With Alejandro, look, I said before the year, I thought he was going to have one of these freshman type seasons that we've seen at Miami. The Cesar Correa, Brian Rzucki was a guy, Chris Hernandez was a guy, that all these guys had really good freshman years. I felt like Rosario is going to be in that mix. And certainly through 2 starts, we've seen him pitch really well. Kyle, like I said, you were on that broadcast against Virginia Tech and calling the game for ACC Network. And I was kind of curious, what stood out to you about Rosario? I know the electric stuff is there, but some guys that throw strikes or throw high velocity don't necessarily always have results, especially immediately. But what stands out to you about him?
I could probably go on and on about him, and I'll start with this. If you're a Hurricanes baseball fan, you're only going to see him for 3 years because he's that good. You ain't going to have him for 4 years because he's going to go high in the MLB draft. You said a couple of names, Carrillo, Rzucki. Who was the other one?
Chris Hernandez.
Yeah. You got to go back a really long time to find kid like this in this program. You have not seen it lately, and he is electric. That fastball. I told Josie this last week. You've got a kid that's going to go out there and pitch with so much conviction. And I know he's not calling his own game, right? And it's coming from the dugout. But JD called a heck of a game. And they have realized that, number one, in college baseball, the umpire is going to give you 3 inches off the plate and off the corner. The kid at 18 years old or whatever he is has command. And he's got a fastball that's 95, 96 miles an hour. There is no need in college baseball with that strike zone. He was just pumping 95-mile-an-hour fastballs away from every hitter and getting every call. If they could do it every single game, I'm serious, Chris. There is no need. And at some point, as he gets older, he's going to develop a real good pitch mix. By the way, I think he's already got some really good secondary stuff. Now, as he gets older and as he starts to play professionally, he'll develop a better pitch mix. But right now, as a freshman, the kid is unreal. He has control, which a lot of times you don't see. There's a lot. You're right. There's the old adage in baseball. It's one thing to throw. It's another thing to pitch. He knows how to pitch. He knows where the ball's going when it leaves his hand. And he's getting the call from JD. He's looking down at that wristband. He's got conviction and he's not messing around. You haven't seen it there in a really long time. And that is really, really exciting. And I do think if they wanted to shake up the rotation, he could be a Friday night guy. But I think there's something to be said for seeing Daniel Fetterman. If he can keep it together on Friday night and you turn around and see this young stud on Saturday, he's really, really good.
And, he's thrown a bunch of strikes, but man, even in that start, it felt like if he just could have got that high and inside fastball in a little, he just missed a couple of those. And it felt like if that pitch comes even more efficiently or effectively, it's going to be even more difficult once he starts getting that going. I just love his windup, man. He just got that slow rocket in there and then just lets it go, lets it fire. But he's got so much poise right now. And it's really the guy they expected. They expected him to be really good, and he has been. And Medeiros has been good too. And one thing that stood out to me with Gino talking about Medeiros, he said, he didn't have his best stuff on Sunday. And Kyle, you've been around the game a long time. Look, for pitchers when they don't have their best stuff, it almost shows you what kind of pitcher they are, in the sense that, look, they've got to either battle, they've got to find different ways to get outs. And I thought Medeiros did a good job of that as a young pitcher. Sometimes it really goes sideways if you don't have your best stuff, and then it all breaks loose. And I think he did a good job of holding it together, almost going 6 innings there. So that's
Yeah.
another good sign, another good arm.
Well, that's what you need out of a young kid too. I mean, now look, it's Sunday in college baseball. If you need to blow up your bullpen and run through it to try to win, you can. But that shows you a lot about a young man. He almost gets you through 6 innings. He keeps the game in check. He leaves the ball game, and the Miami Hurricanes have an opportunity to win a game. And he didn't have his best stuff. And he's young. And sometimes you see young kids, they can totally get away from you in a hurry, and you're down 8-1 after 2 innings, and it's over. But it's funny because when I watched that Florida Gators series, I saw Rosario and then Medeiros. And I thought Medeiros on Sunday was better than Rosario on Saturday. When Medeiros went out there on Sunday, like, who's this kid? But he was really, really good. But they've got 2 freshmen in a starting rotation in college baseball, in my opinion, in a very, very deep ACC conference this year. Like, I could be wrong, but they're only going to get better as the year goes on. They're only going to get more comfortable, because I'm sure at this point in their careers, they're running on a lot of adrenaline. They're going to learn that, hey, I can get myself through 7 innings tonight. I'm going to take a little off my fastball early. I've got a real good feel of it. I can live outside. You don't have to strike everybody out. The best pitchers in Major League Baseball history have made a living on letting guys make contact and get yourself through 7, 8 innings every time and saving a bullpen. Like, those 2 kids are going to figure it out, and they have, but they're going to continue to get better, which is why I know coming off the series loss, and I think there's a lot they got to work on. And I think if they don't correct some things, I think they're in trouble. But I would just sit back and watch them. I think they all recognize what they need to do. I don't think there's like these blinders on that everything is great, but it was a fluke they lost the series. They're disappointed and they know what they got to correct. I would just be patient and watch the whole thing play out, because that's a really good baseball team.
Absolutely. And we could keep it going with the bullpen,
Yeah.
but I want to skip it. Honestly, I want to skip and go ahead to the lineup, but just real quickly on the bullpen, there's no doubt they need to be better. I think what we saw with Jake Smith, that's a positive sign. I feel like he's going to get some more work, and he's a guy, another plus fastball. So look for Jake Smith to get some more action. I think Carson Palmquist is certainly still lights out. So those are good signs. Ben Wanger will bounce back. He's been through college baseball quite a bit. I'm not too concerned about him. I'm interested about JP Gates, and not in terms of not just that he's walking guys, but just his overall role on the team. Look, he's a guy that started a couple years ago, full-time starter. He started most of the games last year, and he's just not getting at bats or innings. So he's a guy in terms of a role, still trying to figure it out if he can really get in there and be that guy. But I know they like him as a left-handed setup guy. But anyway, certainly bullpen needs to be better. But Kyle, I want to get into the lineup. There's a lot to get to with these guys. And initially you start off by saying you're not worried about the lineup. And I feel like some of that is true. Although, look, 2 years ago when they had the full season, 2019, they won 41 games. They hit over 290 as a team. Every one of those starters had an OPS over 800, which was great. Look, last year, only 16 games, runs down a little bit, only hit 256. Again, small sample size, but now we're starting to see some of that stuff play into it. And the reason why I'm comparing 2019 and stuff, because these are pretty much the same guys that started then, almost the same exact guys. Why are you not concerned, or what gives you maybe some positivity with the lineup that you think things will turn around in a positive way? And obviously, certainly it needs to happen sooner than later.
So the track record of some of these guys is why I'm not concerned. Now, their inability to hit left-handed pitching is starting to rear its ugly head. And teams start to see that in ACC. They're going to do whatever they need to do to get as many lefties in there as they can until Miami proves that they can hit them. Now, that's the big one for me. They've got to figure out a way to hit left-handed pitching, because it's been an issue. So I would start there. But look, they're hitting 239 as a team right now. They only have 1 home run. Like, Terrell is not, to me, he's got the power, and he hit for average too. Like, I think he's going to come around. There's no reason for me to believe after 6 games with some of these guys. Look, some of these guys go hit 500 this weekend, and all of a sudden this whole thing looks differently. I just am working under like the impression that they've only played 6 games. They faced an incredible pitching staff in the Florida Gators. And they totally got exposed to left-handed pitching in Virginia Tech last weekend. But it's only 6 games. Like, they're working on that stuff. And a lot of them probably are confident that they can hit left-handed pitching. But Chris, if we do this again in 2 weeks and we're through 12, 15 games of the season and nothing has changed, then there's an issue. But look, Adrian Del Castillo, he's hitting 320, right? You know the kid's going to hit over 300. He's one of the best bats in college baseball. I think Alex Terrell is one of the best bats in college baseball. He's got to get it going a little bit. Gino DeMari said there's way too much swing and miss with 2 strikes. Got to put the ball in play. That's huge, especially in college baseball. There's a tendency to make errors, find a way on base. When you get on base, you can't make base running errors, which they've done. I'm just kind of working off of it's only 6 games. And it's how do you assess things after playing the Florida Gators, a series in which they take 2 of 3? It's like some of those kids are going to be first and second round draft picks, and they're going to go on to be Major League Baseball starting pitchers. It's like, how do you assess that? But again, and they really struggled against Virginia Tech. Now, Gino said he's still trying to find the lineup. Now, how much more is he going to jostle with it until they just settle on something? Because again, I think you do have to come back. Like, you can't figure things out 25 games in because it could be too late. But after this weekend, do they find a lineup, a nice little balance? They put the 2 right-handers in last Saturday to kind of balance that heavy left-handed hitting lineup. I think they're going to have to find it. You got to find it sooner rather than later. But not this weekend, but to me, after next weekend, I think it's very fair to go back then and assess. Let's look at the team collectively. What are they hitting as a team? This is a team to me that needs to hit more home runs. I think there's a lot of power in the lineup, whether it was Del Castillo, whether it's Terrell, whether it's Raymond Gill, who's got 1 of 2 home runs. Sorry, if I said 1, it's 2 home runs. Like, there's a lot of power in the lineup. I think they need to try to get some quick offense in some of these games. A 3-run home run with 2 outs in the 5th inning to, expand a lead and stuff like that. I just think you got to wait until 10 or 12 games in to make a real assessment as to how things are going. And I just think some of these guys have a track record. They're way too good to be performing to this after 6 games, whatever this is. So I think you got to wait until at least not this weekend, after next weekend. But then it's fair after that. If there are issues, then it's like, how do they get corrected? Because then you will start to run out of time.
And I definitely agree with it. And I think you touched on it with Terrell, Del Castillo, Raymond Gill. Those are your top 3 guys. Yanni Morales, freshman. I think he's a plus bat. He certainly showed that. So I think when you have those plus bats in the lineup, it can really elevate your lineup, whereas the other guys kind of essentially just fill in a little bit. I think what's interesting about the lineup, and I was able to get some time with Gino after a game the other day, because Raymond Gill and Gabe Rivera are 2 guys that have played a lot. Those are right-handed bats that they've not played that much. And I know Raymond was dealing with the injury coming back from that, but he did hit that home run, but he is striking out a little bit, and Rivera's just not been in there. So while they might, Gino does classify this as a power hitting team. If those 2 guys aren't in the lineup,
right,
it's Terrell and Del Castillo. Yanni can hit homers. But after that, who's really going to deliver on those home runs? I think there's a lot of guys that are similar. I don't want to group them all together, but a guy like Lala and Vallar, Tony Jenkins and Christian Del Castillo, if they want to get Adam Frank and, Chad Bourne in there, those guys aren't really, those are kind of more doubles guys when they're at their best. Maybe they hit a few homers, but I think that group of guys, I think you could throw Jared Thomas in that mix. I think that's going to determine the lineup. I'm not worried about those top guys. To me, Alex Terrell, I've been probably more high on him than most people. I wouldn't drop him in the lineup. I like his ability. I know he doesn't hit as many singles and things like that, but I love his home run power. I think he's gotten better. I think he's shown his strikeout rates have come down each season. I think that is a great ability, and he's doing well with that this year. I think it's good. He's not chasing so much. Obviously he's not clicking, but I think he's going to be fine. I think you keep him in there. I wouldn't hit him 8th, to be honest. I'd move him back up. I don't like that, but
I agree.
Some of these other guys, let's talk about Yo-Yo. Certainly another guy like these 2 pitchers. And if you guys pay attention to the recruiting rankings, none of this is a surprise, because these are high level guys that really shouldn't be at UM, but because of the shortened draft, the high asking price, they're at UM, and that's the difference of a plus player. But yeah, starting with Yo-Yo, just kind of what have you seen? He's definitely been lights out so far.
Yeah, I mean, he just has an ability to hit. Like, some people learn it, some people are born with it. Like, he has a knack to hit. It doesn't matter if he's ahead in the count or he's behind in the count. He's got a beautiful swing. I mean, there's only so much analyzing you can do on it. The kid just knows how to hit. And sometimes that's all you need, because guys that know how to hit, it doesn't matter who they're going to face, right-handed, left-handed, submarine, over the top, hides it well. It doesn't matter. He sees the ball well, and he just has an ability to hit. So it's just like he's hitting, 370 after 6 games or whatever it is. Like, he's just not going to be a guy where you feel like he hasn't snapped out of a slump for 2 straight weekends, man. Like, he's going to get his hits. He's going to get on base. His on-base percentage is over like 400. So he can hit. I mean, what more do you say about the kid?
Yeah, and I asked him after the game, after his home run, his first home run as a Hurricane, because it, on the TV broadcast, it didn't, it was a little iffy if it was going to be out. And I asked him, did you think you got it? He's like, no, I thought it was going to be a fly out. And he's like, I got mad at myself. And then it goes over. I mean, he's going to hit some no doubters, but the fact that he thinks it's going to be a fly out and it goes out, that's a great sign.
Well, here's another thing too. You always got to remember with these young kids, sometimes they come in looking like string beans, but you get in like a baseball program at the top level of college baseball, and you start to have some protein, and you start to get on a dietary plan, and these guys have you in the weight room, and everything is regimented. And besides that, at that age, you just tend to develop and get bigger and stronger as you get older. The kids, like, the power is only going to continue to improve. That's what a lot of these guys do. Take a look at the starting pitchers too. Some of these kids are out here and they look like a stiff wind is going to blow them away. They get right, but they get in these programs, they put on some muscle, and you just go like, well, you'll see this next time this year, like, oh, he looks a little different. Like, that uniform looks a little more filled out. So I think he's going to be really, really good. He's fun to watch.
For sure. Kyle, let's stay with the lineup. Who are some guys that, again, you're talking 6 games in, and I know you're looking even a couple weeks ahead, but maybe this weekend, who you think, let's see a good weekend out of, who are you hoping really steps up, or you feel like maybe even needs to step up this weekend, and that's important for this lineup here?
I'm going to give you 3 guys. The first one is Jordan Lala, but I'm not going to be quick to say he's got to start hitting, because he's getting on base. He's got like a 367 OBP as a leadoff hitter, but he's only hitting 208. So would you love to see more frozen rope singles up the middle and doubles to get himself in scoring position early? Yes. But it's hard to sit here and say he's got to be better when he's getting on base a lot. And when he's on base, he has an ability to steal. So that's one where I think you just love to see a big weekend, like go 4 for 12 in 3 games with a couple of doubles, maybe mix in a triple, maybe some singles or whatever. So like the average isn't appetizing at all, but he's getting on base. So it's hard to sit here and knock the kid, because he's doing his job as a leadoff hitter, right? See some pitches, find a way on, get hit, walk. The other one plays great defense. To me, Tony Jenkins, he's hitting 143. His on-base percentage is a little over 208. You can't have a dead hole in your lineup. The kid is a stud defensively. Saw it in Florida. He can track down anything in the outfield. They have a great outfield, by the way. They can cover a lot of ground, especially with Del Castillo and right, and Jenkins in center. But Jenkins, to me, when I listened to Gino preseason in his media availability, I had seen on YouTube or whatever, wherever they posted, I think there was a consensus, like they think they're getting something pretty good offensively this year in Tony Jenkins, like that there would be a big improvement. There hasn't been, but you hit 400 this weekend, all of a sudden it looks a lot different, right? Like, you're still at the point in the season where he's got 20 at bats, whatever it is, right? One big weekend, that whole thing turns around. That's a guy that I think amongst all 3 I'm going to give you. So I gave you who? I gave you
Jordan,
Lala, and that's Jenkins. I think he's the biggest one. And the other one I would like to see get going a little bit is Anthony Vallar. Not hitting a lot, on base percentage pretty good, over 300. That's a kid, to me, he could be a really good hitter. I love his swing. I think he's got the ability to hit. But those 3, to me, I think you would like to see some more production. Lala, I don't worry about as much because he's getting on base. And if that's your leadoff hitter and he's got a near 400 on base percentage, you almost don't care what he's hitting. Jenkins has got to get it going. And Anthony Vallar, would love to just see a good weekend.
Those are great names, and all three guys I think are certainly key. I think Terrell and Adrian Del Castillo, those are your captains, those are your leaders. I think those guys need to have one of those breakout, standout
Oh
weekends
yeah, no
for
question.
both of them. And because once again, I think that really kind of dictates the lineup. You can kind of carry the lineup. Here's the other thing, Kyle, before we wrap this thing up. Only 5 guys so far have extra base hits. I'd like to see whether it's the 3 guys you mentioned start to pile up some extra base hits, whether it's other guys they give opportunities to, just start really getting those doubles, because that's another thing that not only is the average low, but they're just not getting extra base hits. I think their first couple of games, just all singles against Virginia Tech, you got to pick that up. And I know that one thing you mentioned earlier, look, these guys know what they need to do. It's not like I don't feel like this is one of those things, and I know the results are what they are, but I don't think this team was sitting around thinking that they beat Florida and it's over for the season. I know that
Correct.
was a point of emphasis, but there were certainly things in the Florida series they didn't do well that they needed to improve on. The ERA was obviously high and average was low, but there were things to work on it. And I think they just didn't get the results the second weekend. I don't think this team feels like they've won anything. And I know Gino as a coach makes sure that's being known for the guys. So we'll see how the weekend goes. Obviously, NC State and like you said, ACC is going to be tough this year. Definitely, Kyle. Man, I appreciate your insight. It's always great talking baseball with you. I know we could go a lot longer. There's a lot to talk about with this team, but yeah, definitely. Keep your head up, and we'll definitely talk soon, man.
All right, Chris. Thanks. I appreciate it.
All right, see you, Kyle.